What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to be discussing even more new features in iOS 27. We're going to talk about how the Apple Watch could be getting a complete overhaul, the confusion surrounding the canceled iPhone 20, Apple's big plan to improve Siri AI, a crazy AirTag story, and more. So let's start off with iOS 27 Beta 5, because yes, this week I finally released Beta 5 after such a long wait. So you're welcome for that, and we did get that 5th beta. It was a pretty large size, but it did have quite a few changes, more changes than we saw in Beta 3 and Beta 4, which is really nice to see. Now, there are a couple of other features that I didn't even talk about in my What's New video. In my What's New video, I covered a ton of features and changes, but there are even more. And one of the first ones that you'll notice are the very subtle changes to some new app icons. So I covered quite a few new app icons, but there are even more. So every icon you see right here is changed. It's kind of like revised a little bit here in Beta 5, including for books, for Apple TV remote, the App Store, weather, and of course all the bottom 4 that I already showed before. Now the preview app icon I think is just sick. Like that's one of my favorite app icons period on iOS now. So that got a big glow up here in Beta 5, but we do have quite a few new app icons, which is nice to see here in this 5th beta. Now also there is something that I noticed changed in Beta 5, but I just purposely didn't say it because I feel like it's a lot of placebo and I didn't want to just say something out of the potential for it to be placebo. What I mean is liquid glass is more liquid glassy here in Beta 5. So I didn't want to say that because I don't like saying it based on just the assumption. I had them side by side, but sometimes your mind can just think it's more clear, more like liquid glass than it actually is. But after seeing a lot of other people notice it as well, and after taking a deeper look at it, and going throughout the OS a little bit more, I did notice that yes, the smallest version here, the fully left version of liquid glass is more glassy than it was previously, which is nice to see. Like if I go into Apple Music right here, you can see what that looks like down there, and you'll just see it throughout iOS as well. It's not a big difference, but it is just a little subtle change to liquid glass. And you'll even see it a little bit inside of the control center as well. Now, speaking of the control center, there is also something I wanted to mention in here, and that has to do with visual intelligence, because we do have a slightly new glyph icon for that here in Beta 5 as well. So that's what it looks like right there. We do also have a change inside of our mail settings. So if we head down to our apps right here and then go to the M's and go to mail, we do have a new toggle. If we scroll down right here, you will see that we have this right here. So it says personalize smart reply. So that's a new toggle there. You can turn that on or off. Also new in Beta 5 is that the large reminders widget, the one that takes up the full page, this now shows auto categories. So if you have a list in here with auto categorization, especially things like groceries, that will now show the the automatic categories that it created, and also the shared with you. So if you're sharing a reminder list with somebody else, it will now show that here as well and say that it's being shared. Also in Beta 5, if we tap on the search button right here, you can see we have a new animation for how that search or ask comes out. So we'll tap it again and see that is a new animation here in Beta 5. And of course, we did also see another change to that as well. I talked about this in the What's New video, but if you missed that, if you go into settings, search, right here underneath before searching, we can now choose to suggest 4, 8, or 0 applications, along with a toggle there for suggesting app shortcuts. I did also want to talk about the home application really quickly, because I did also notice that with Beta 5, my HomeKit devices respond a lot more, frequently. So I had some really weird issues, especially in Beta 3 and Beta 4, where sometimes I would ask to open up my blinds or turn on the lights, and it would just hang and hang and hang for seconds. Sometimes it wouldn't even work. But now with Beta 5, I've used it several times, multiple times a day, and it works every single time now. So I'm not sure what's been changed on the back end, but it seems like HomeKit devices, specifically when you ask Siri to change them, it works better here in Beta 5. We also talked about this in the What's New video, but the 5G or the LTE icon is now missing in the status bar when you go into the control center if you have Wi-Fi enabled. So it's only going to show one of them now. So your active connection, whether that's Wi-Fi or 5G LTE, that's only going to show up one of them next to your carrier name right there. Now, I should also mention that 5G Plus is now available in Spain as of Beta 5. But not everything is sunshine and rainbows with Beta 5, because I've also noticed a couple of bugs, and there's one glaring bug that has been driving me crazy ever since the software was first released, and I know it's driving a lot of you guys crazy as well, and this is inside of the Messages application. For some reason, we have this bar that just hangs down and cuts off your pinned contacts up there at the top. Sometimes I can't even read the preview text when somebody sends something in that group or in that chat because this bar is just taking up all that space. Now, it goes away when you force quit the application, but it comes back. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but this little bar Messages is driving me crazy, and that's new in beta 5. Also, a really funny bug here in beta 5, if you go into your control center here and you long press on your Wi-Fi, you will notice that the Wi-Fi bars are backwards. So take a look at the ones that don't have full strength. You will see that the missing bar is at the bottom instead of at the top. So a really weird visual bug. It's really specific. It's not really going to change anything, but it is a visual bug that's kind of funny to see here in beta 5. Actually, take a look at that. So the bond config actually shows up properly, but all the ones above it are showing improperly. It's showing that first little dot down there to be missing instead. Now, there's also something very interesting in the code of iOS 27 beta 5 that's referencing a new Apple reference image feature, which is an opt-in camera mode that will embed provenance data into a photo's metadata, letting anybody verify if it was genuinely captured by a real iPhone camera and not AI generated. So basically, with this new camera mode that could be coming in 27, you're going to be able to take a picture and it's going to basically be proven that it was taken on an iPhone and nothing else. And this is apparently how it's going to work. So you're going to shoot in the reference mode. It's just going to be another mode in the camera, like video, Siri, all that. It's going to be a reference mode in there. And you're going to tap on the reference badge on the image and it will send the raw image, the sensor signatures, the capture timestamps, and the unique hardware sensor identifiers to Apple's private cloud compute servers. After that, PCC authenticates it, it assigns a unique ID, and returns a verified version to your device. And of course, since Apple is so privacy first, the PCC is going to receive the sensor data and a hash, but not the raw photo itself. So Apple's not going to be able to actually see the image or anything like that when it's assigning that verified badge. So obviously, this is aimed more at professional, photographers or videographers and journalists who may have to prove that a photo was taken with an iPhone, because these days the pictures are so good, the videos are so good from the iPhone that people just don't believe it, especially if you're, a public figure or for a news station. Like, you may have to prove that. And now there's going to be a way, apparently it's in the code, to prove that it was shot on an iPhone using this new reference mode. So hopefully we see that in the next beta. That will be really cool to see and kind of unpack and see how that works. But as far as the performance and the battery life goes here on beta 5, I have to say it's been probably 3 betas since I've said that the performance or battery life haven't really improved much. I have to say here with beta 5, I have noticed a difference with the performance specifically. So aside from that really, weird and kind of annoying bug in Messages, I've not really had any issues with performance, no overheating, nothing like that. And there's also a lot of resolved bugs and a lot of UI issues that have been resolved here in beta 5 as well. Just take a look at the release notes. Like I showed in my What's New video, there are a lot of bugs that have been patched. Now, as far as battery life goes, we're sitting at 70% right now. I'm not too sure what I started at, so you guys will have to tell me, but battery life also appears to be really good here in beta 5. I haven't really noticed as big of a difference with the battery life compared to the previous beta as I have with performance. Performance just seems much smoother, and I don't like saying that. I haven't said that in quite some time, but I will tell you right now that it does feel smoother than beta 4. This is the first one where I feel like it's, getting really close to that final stretch, that final build. And before we talk about all the other news, let's go ahead and talk about what to expect next from Apple, because as I mentioned in my What's New video, we are most likely on a weekly release schedule now for Apple software. So that means that next week, the week of August 17th, that Monday right there, we should be seeing the next beta, which is iOS 27 beta 6. So we should see that next, and then beta 7 following on the Monday the 24th, and then potentially a beta 8 on the 31st, and then we may see the RC or something like that after that. But we should be seeing betas consecutively for at least another 3 weeks. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And of course, the final release for iOS 27 will be at some point in the first half of September. I would say the 14th is the latest that we'll see iOS 27. But of course, that is just speculation based on Apple's history. We will have to wait and see what happens. It also depends on when that event takes place. And then also this week, we got a very strange update with iOS 26.6.1, but it wasn't actually a public release. This was an RC build from Apple. Now, it's not like this hasn't hasn't ever happened before, but it's still quite unusual to push out a security patch update as a beta, especially for iOS 26. So 26.6.1 did come out earlier this week. It's specifically just to fix, security bugs. That's it. There's no features, no changes. It's just to address some security patches. And that was only released for developer beta and public beta users. So it should be out to the public, I would assume, early next week, most likely on Monday. But we'll have to wait and see. So if you are still on iOS 26, just know, if you saw all the news and you saw me tweeting about 26.6.1 coming out, just know it was actually the RC build for beta testers for now. Okay, so now we have to talk about the Apple Watch and the potential big overhaul and kind of revamp that could be coming very soon for the Apple Watch. So this is a new report coming from Mark Gurman, and he said this: for the moment, the trend of modest upgrades will continue. The upcoming Series 12 and Ultra 4 are slated to get some under-the-hood improvements, including their first real boost in performance in years. And Apple has been working on an addition for styles, with the company plotting the return of a ceramic case option either this year or next. It also will offer new colors and bands and a series of new health and fitness related upgrades. And just as a side note, I love the ceramic casing on the Apple Watch. I will be thrilled to see that come back after years of not having it. And here's where it gets interesting. So he says, but bigger moves are coming. Apple's industrial design team has been exploring a broader rethink of its smartwatches. They're considering new devices with no displays, kind of like the Whoop, as well as different types of screens and various sizes. While unlikely to hit the market, round screens have even been considered. I'm told the work also includes potentially adding premium models beyond the Ultra and Hermes variants. On the lower end, Apple is considering more affordable concepts besides the current SE model. Apple hasn't settled on a single direction yet, but it is determined to reinvent the lineup in response to growing competition. In the end, the watch revamp could be as significant as the iPhone's transformation from a slab design into a foldable device. These changes will take time though. So that is a pretty big claim there from Mark Gurman. He's comparing the Apple Watch revamp to being as big as it's going to be from going from a slab iPhone to a foldable iPhone. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm really curious to see, how this is going to look. Like, is Apple going to make a Whoop competitor, something like the Fitbit Air? Are they going to make something like that? That's really, fitness focused without a screen and just relies heavily on the metrics that you see in the fitness application. I would love that. And then also, I'm just trying to picture the design changes for the Apple Watch. If it's not going to be circular, how is it going to be so much different than what we have now? So I guess that's yet to be seen, but it is pretty interesting to see that Apple is planning a pretty big shakeup for the Apple Watch over the next couple of years. And again, we might see those changes come as early as this year with the ceramic casing returning. Now we need to discuss the crazy back and forth that we saw this week with the iPhone 20. So next year we're going to be seeing the iPhone 20, Apple's anniversary iPhone, and we saw multiple reports this week that were all kind of conflicting. So it started off with early in the week, we saw Jefferies analyst Edison Lee claim that Apple's all-glass 20th anniversary iPhone had been canceled. And then shortly after that, Gurman pushed back, saying that the glass-centric redesign is still on track for next year. And he put out a whole report on this. So he said this: Apple expects to launch iPhone Pro models next year that will make use of a new glassy look. Glass is used on the front and the back of the phones, known internally as V73 and V74, and the material will curve into the sides of the devices with a metal band in the middle. A more aspirational version championed by Apple's design studio used even more glass instead of metal, but that was scrapped early on. With that approach, the company encountered problems connecting the glass panels together. The design didn't hold up when Apple had to figure out how to produce it at large volumes. Apple's product roadmap has not changed. So you may have caught it in there, but this analyst that said that this phone was canceled may have been referencing the all glass design that was really, curbed a while back, the one that they couldn't figure out how to, mass produce. That's probably the one that this analyst was thinking about and saying it was canceled. He just assumed that the all glass one was canceled completely. And then prominent Chinese leaker Digital Chat Station also piled on with supply chain details that supported Gurman's claim. So he said the device actually looks like this. So it's going to have, it says 4 curved edge design using a flat 2D OLED panel with a glass cover. The borderless appearance comes from optical refraction through the curved glass, not from the display panel itself reaching the edges. So that is going to be very interesting to see next year, that curved glass display that we've been wanting really for like at least 10 years. I feel like I've been seeing renders about this for like at least 10 years here on YouTube, but we could actually be seeing that. We should actually be seeing that next year. Now we're also going to have kind of a curved display on the iPhone Ultra, Apple's upcoming iPhone foldable that we're going to see just next month. We're going to see that announced, but we have some new details this week talking about how it might actually launch later than expected and only be in the US at first. So this comes from Channel News Australia, and they said Apple will unveil its first foldable iPhone at its September 8th US launch event, but will not release the device to the market, with a major Chinese component supplier confirming the company is battling supply, testing, and pricing problems that could see Australia miss out for months. The supplier, who spoke to Channel News in China, said the delay is primarily down to supply and pricing issues, adding, "We believe the company is also having testing issues with production models that have already been built." Australian carriers and a major retailer have confirmed the Apple Fold will be a no-show on retail shelves when the new iPhone 18 range lands locally, with limited supply set to be rolled out in the USA first, followed by key markets including China. So that is kind of interesting. Now, I would take this report with a big grain of salt because we really haven't heard this from anybody else. And this is just from, sources over there. So I wouldn't put full trust into this, but it does kind of make sense. But the part that kind of loses me is they said the September 8th Apple event. So, we're saying that's probably most likely going to be on the 9th, not on the 8th, because of Labor Day being on Monday the 7th. So we'll have to wait and see, but this is an interesting revelation if this is actually true. But it seems like kind of a generalization, because just because it's not coming to Australia and China doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily US only. So these are just rumors for now. Take that with a grain of salt, but that is still interesting nonetheless. And speaking of the iPhone Fold, we also saw Ice Universe tweet out this week. So he showed a screen protector for the foldable and said this is the screen protector for the iPhone Ultra. You can see the iPhone Ultra actually has an irregular screen with one side square and the other round. So this has been a debate ever since we even started seeing the dummy models for the iPhone Fold. So a lot of people think it's going to be weird. It's going to feel weird in the hand. People are going to hate it because it's asymmetrical, like it's round on one side and a sharp corner on the other side. But we have to keep in mind, Apple is all about ergonomics. Like Apple loves making things that feel good in the hand and look good as well. So I think this is going to be overblown. I think it's going to look a lot worse in the renders and the screen protectors than it actually will with a real device. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? So I know we hate talking about this, but we have to talk about the iPhone 18 Pro and the price increase, because we also saw a new report this week that says that Apple is spending 38% more to build the iPhone 18 Pro. So this comes from TrendForce, and they say the bill of materials for a 256 gig iPhone 18 Pro is roughly 38% higher than the equivalent iPhone 17 Pro, driven almost entirely by memory prices. And TrendForce says higher retail prices are unavoidable. And the memory situation is just staggering at this point. I mean, memory accounted for about 10% of iPhone Pro component costs a year ago, and TrendForce estimates now that it's going to be at 34% for Q3 of 2026, rising past 40% in the first half of 2027. And they say panel and chip costs, one of the two biggest line items, have been reduced to single-digit percentages by comparison. Now, TrendForce is expecting Apple to kind of absorb a lot of these costs and instead of passing it all on to the consumer. However, they are also saying that Apple could very well increase the price of the previous generation. So we might actually see an increase in price in the iPhone 17 series, either at the launch of the iPhone 18 or even before. It could even be as early as next week. So yes, last year's devices could be getting more expensive the next year after they're a year old. Kind of crazy, a crazy world we're living in right now. But anyways, we also should talk about some good news, because we also saw this week that Apple secured lower display prices for the iPhone 18 Pros. So this report comes out of South Korea, and they're claiming that Apple will pay LG and Samsung around $68 per OLED display for the iPhone 18 Pro Max, down significantly from the $110 to $120 that it paid those suppliers for each iPhone 17 Pro Max display. So that is a massive difference in price for that. that. So that should also help, kind of offset a little bit the memory prices that we're seeing get dramatically increased. We should also talk about the base iPhone 18, which is coming in the spring of next year. Again, remember, we have the staggered release for the base models now. So we have some good news actually for that, because we could be seeing 2 Pro features coming to the base model again next year. It seems like kind of the trend of Apple doing that. But we're now hearing from analyst Jeff Poo that the base iPhone 18 is going to have 12 gigs of RAM, up from 8 gigs in the iPhone 17, while the iPhone 18e will have 9 gigs of RAM. So that is good news. However, remember that this conflicts with what Ming-Chi Kuo just recently said, where he said both the iPhone 18 and 18e will have 9 gigabytes of RAM. So this report is a little bit newer, so it could be true that we have 12 gigs in the iPhone 18, but it's still interesting to note, because keep in mind, when you have 9 gigs, you are going to be missing out on some of the Apple Intelligence features. And Jeff Poo also believes that the iPhone 18 will have a more narrow, a smaller dynamic island compared to last year's models. We've heard about this for quite some time, how it could be coming to the iPhone 18, and now he is saying it is coming to the iPhone 18 and the 18 Pros. So we got a very interesting report this week from the Wall Street Journal about how Apple is going to improve Siri AI with more real news that's up to date and accurate. So basically, Apple's going to pay publishers to feed Siri AI real news with a 9-figure budget. So they said that Apple is in talks with news publishers on multi-year content deals that would give Siri AI access to current news and information with a 9-figure budget set aside for payments. Now, the structure is different from standard AI deals, because instead of a flat fee for broad content across, Apple is proposing to pay publishers each time their content is actually used by Siri AI. So it's a per-use model rather than a blanket license. And they said that Apple has previously signed deals that included AI training rights, so this new push is specifically about real-time Siri AI query responses, not training data. So this is actually good news, and I really like hearing this, because Apple is really taking Siri AI seriously, especially with iOS 27 just around the corner. They really need to be able to compete with everybody else, and this could be a good step in that right direction, especially with a 9-figure budget, on the table. Okay, so it's that time where we have to talk about the 5 Vision Pro owners out there who are watching this video, because there's actually something really cool. Even if you don't own a Vision Pro, don't click off yet, don't fast forward yet. This is actually really cool. And so this week we saw Apple announce that 3D MLB games are coming to Vision Pro. So they announced that 4 of the 7 September Friday Night Baseball games will stream live in Apple immersive format on Vision Pro. So it's going to be a 3D video at 8K resolution with a 180-degree field of view and spatial audio. That sounds incredible. If you're into baseball, even if you're not into baseball, like I'm going to watch this. I don't even really watch baseball anymore, even though I played my whole life. I'm going to watch this just because it's so cool. And that's, these are the things that I wish Apple would have done years ago. Like this should have been there when it launched, because I think this is super cool. Being able to watch these games in 3D, fully immersed, is amazing. So if you have a Vision Pro by chance, be sure to check this out. And by the way, it will be included with your Apple TV Plus subscription, so you don't have to pay anything extra for this experience. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a woman in Kentucky was driving home after recently ending a relationship when her phone suddenly alerted her that an unknown Apple AirTag was moving with her. So of course she did what you should do. She searched her car and she eventually found an AirTag hidden underneath of her car. So she immediately suspected her ex-boyfriend, a 37-year-old named Darren, who was already under a protective order that barred him from coming within 500 feet of her or contacting her in any way. But little did she know, the AirTag was just the beginning, because a couple days later, investigators say Darren started texting the woman's new boyfriend asking where she was. He also repeatedly called the woman from multiple phone numbers, leaving voicemails despite the protective order. And then things got even stranger, because police say that Darren texted the boyfriend, "Time to roll out, boy." And after the boyfriend left the woman's house, he sent another message that read, "Good boy." The woman told police that the messages made her realize he knew exactly what was happening at her home, making her feel like she was being watched. And then here's where it gets even crazier, because later that same day, while she was driving down the road, she spotted her ex-boyfriend Darren driving in the opposite direction, and according to investigators, he pulled out what appeared to be a paintball gun and fired it at her windshield. The paintball struck the glass, temporarily obstructing her view while she was driving, and police say that created a substantial risk of a serious crash. And that was the last straw after she called police, because he was arrested later that day and charged with stalking, unlawfully using a tracking device, and wanton endangerment. And it all started with that unknown AirTag moving with you alert. So again, like I always say, be on the lookout for those alerts and take them very seriously. You never know, especially if you have a crazy ex, like in this case. And age has nothing to do with it. This guy is 37 years old, so clearly age has nothing to do with it. People are going to be crazy no matter what, so just be careful out there. Anyways, guys, that is it for this week's episode of Apple Weekly. I hope you did enjoy it. I will be getting a lot more videos out on iOS 27. I'm actually working on the big movie as we speak right now, so that's going to be a big banger. I hope you have your popcorn pre-ordered for when that comes out next month. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any thoughts, any questions, concerns, anything at all, let me know down there in the comments below. I will be down there replying to you guys as always. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.